Welcome to episode 8 of my Top Choice Telepsychiatry LLC podcast. This episode is about the power of speaking simply as a provider so that communication between the provider and the patient becomes a form of healing. As a psychiatric nurse practitioner, and just as a human who's been a patient myself, I've seen firsthand how communication can either build a bridge or build a wall. We go through all this clinical training as providers, clinical hours, all these degrees, and board certification. But here's the thing, all that knowledge means absolutely nothing if the person sitting across from us, the patient, does not understand what we're saying. Have you ever seen a provider busting through the patient's room, like Kramer from Seinfeld, and heard the provider rattle off clinical jargon like they're reading straight from a textbook, and then just leave? Oh, I have. I'll never forget when I worked as an ER nurse of a trauma hospital. This was before I became a provider myself. I was in my patient's room, and a provider bursts into the room and says to the patient, INR came back a 2.2, so you're going to be discharged. No explanation, no follow-up. Okay, so what's the poor patient supposed to think? Probably something like, what's an INR? Is that good? Is that bad? Do I still have blood in me? Am I dying? Can I eat nachos again? The implications are serious. Patients are left confused, anxious, and uninformed when they should be empowered to make decisions about their own health. Using complex language in the right setting as providers.
Oh my God.
You know, it's funny. On national television, you can say things like, they don't know their coccyx from their olecranon process. Totally fine, totally legal. Why? Because it's anatomically correct. It literally means they don't know their ass from their elbow. But it goes to show, you can dress it up, use clinical terms, and no one flinches. But the meaning does not change. It's just been given a different outfit. I can't tell you how many times I've asked a new client during their intake, do you have any medical conditions? And the response from the patient is, nope, none at all. Then I follow up with a question, are you currently taking any medications? And the patient says, yes, plenty. So let me get this straight. You're on 5 different medications, but you don't know what any of them are for. This is not about judgment. It's about awareness. This is what happens when providers do not take time to explain to the patient what the medications are for. Patients leave with bottles full of pills, but no real understanding of why. That's not health literacy. That's blind trust, and it's dangerous. Now look, I get it. Sometimes, especially in media or even in real life, there's this weird obsession with using fancy clinical terms to sound smart. You ever watch a medical drama and a character says something like, he's suffering a myocardial infarction. Dude, that just means heart attack. Say, heart attack? Everybody understands heart attack. But no, TV wants the character to sound brilliant, even if it means confusing the average viewer. And you know what? In real life, that same behavior often boils down to insecurity. Because if someone is deliberately using words they know the person they're speaking with doesn't understand, chances are they're trying to feed their ego. They're trying to feel superior. And that's not education. That's performance. So here's my stance. If you're a provider, doesn't matter what specialty, field of medicine, If you're not explaining terms in a way your patient understands, you are not practicing good medicine. Full stop. I make it my personal mission to always speak in terms my clients can connect with, because healing does not happen in confusion. It happens in clarity. I'll break things down, I'll rephrase, I'll draw stick figures if I have to. Whatever it takes for my clients to feel like we're walking through this together. Because I believe informed care is ethical care. And understanding, true mutual understanding, is the heart of therapeutic connection. I challenge you to think about your words. What are you really saying? Life is already loud and complicated for most people. Between managing responsibilities, juggling stressors, and navigating personal struggles, patients often arrive to appointments already carrying a full emotional load. The last thing they need is to feel overwhelmed by confusing medical language on top of everything else they're going through. As providers, we have the power to reduce, not add to, the mental burden. Speaking simply, clearly, and compassionately isn't about dumbing things down. It's about making space for understanding. When communication is accessible, patients can engage in their care with confidence rather than confusion. And that kind of clarity, it's not just helpful, it's healing. If I had never entered the psychiatric specialty myself, I wouldn't have known what half of any of these things mean. Terms like anhedonia, dysthymia, extrapyramidal symptoms, they sound more like crossword puzzle answers than things a person might actually be experiencing. Even phrases like thought blocking, tangential speech, or affective blunting can make somebody feel like they're being talked about as opposed to being talked with. It's one thing to study these terms in textbooks. It's another to be on the receiving end of them in a vulnerable moment. That's why I believe in breaking it all down. Because if we want to truly help people, we need to stop hiding behind terminology and start connecting through plain, honest language. Let's stop hiding behind fancy degrees and impressive vocabularies. Speak human. Speak heart. Until next time, protect your coccyx from collapse because you need that foundation. Guard and stabilize your cerebrum for higher order function because your thoughts shape your world. Ensure adequate perfusion to the myocardium because the heart still remembers what the mind forgets. And preserve motor dexterity in your distal phalanges because even your fingertips carry the stories of your life. Or for those of us not starring on a hospital drama, that means your butt, your brain, your heart, and your fingers. Because nobody, and I mean nobody, needs a confused patient or a bruised ego trying to sound smart. For the love of clarity, say it plainly. Till next time.